Ryan was killed with your 3 children home. Would you ever orchestrate the murder of your husband with your 3 kids home?
Never.
Did you participate in the death of your husband?
No.
Inside in the living room, a man sat in his favorite recliner. A man with 4 kids, loved his wife and worked hard to provide for his family. Killed by the same woman he gave his life to in service, provision, and protection. His name was Ryan Cooper, 42 years old, a forklift operator, a father of 4, a quiet man with a love for country music, football, and long nights spent with his kids. In the morning of June 18, 2021, Ryan wasn't watching television. He wasn't sipping coffee. He wasn't asleep. He was dead.
You are the lover.
That's what you call him, yes.
What do you call him?
I called him an online inappropriate relationship. When I hear lover, I assume sexual partners. It's just the way I perceive it.
Sunnyside Street, just after sunrise. 42-year-old Ryan Cooper sits in his recliner. Still, lifeless, blood dried around his mouth, 2 bullet wounds to his face, shot at close range. There are no signs of struggle, no forced entry, nothing stolen. But it's not the crime scene that first stuns deputies. It's what they see when they arrive. Karina Cooper, his wife, is sitting on top of his body. Her clothes are soaked in blood. She's screaming, but she's not performing CPR. She's not near the door. She's not doing anything to save him. She's sitting, still, waiting. She tells police she just found him like this. But something isn't right. Ryan's body's cold.
Was Huston jealous of your relationship with Ryan?
Huston acted like he was my husband and Ryan was my boyfriend. Like I was, if Ryan and I were together, he acted like I was sneaking around with my husband and cheating on him somehow.
Did Huston talk about killing Ryan?
Several times.
Did you ever take him seriously?
No, I thought he was full of crap. He liked to brag about how he knew powerful people and his dad knew dangerous people, and he insinuated that he had been involved in some other crimes.
But you didn't believe him?
No, he's got quite a reputation around town with women and telling tall tales.
If we had the other Snapchat content, would it show these things about Huston going off about Ryan?
Yes, several threats.
What would your reaction be when he's making these threats? How did you handle it?
Laughed it off, used sarcasm, sometimes replied inappropriately, like when he said one time, "Don't use your husband's truck in the morning, there's going to be a bomb planted under it." And I replied, "Gee, thanks for the heads up."
Yeah. Okay. So, does that mean, though, do those messages mean that did you want your husband dead?
No.
Rigor mortis has set in. He didn't die minutes ago. He died hours ago. So what happened during the night? How could Karina sleep through 2 gunshots fired in her own home? Why didn't she call 911 until morning? Why is she sitting on his body? And where is the weapon? Investigators find 2 shell casings, but the gun is gone. No signs of an intruder. No sign of forced entry. No broken locks. No muddy footprints. No blood trail leading outside. And most curiously of all, nothing is missing. So if this was a murder for robbery, it failed. If it was a random break-in, it left no trace. And if it was a professional hit, why would someone shoot Ryan twice in the face, up close, and leave everything else untouched? But maybe it wasn't random. Maybe it wasn't a stranger. Maybe the killer knew exactly where Ryan would be and who would benefit from his death.
When did you meet Ryan?
I met Ryan in 2005. In the summer of 2006.
When did you guys get married?
We got married September of 2009.
How would you characterize the nature of your relationship with Ryan in general? I guess, was it good? Was it bad?
Generally speaking, I would call it good, normal.
Deputies start asking questions. And then one name keeps coming up, Huston Danker, a man Karina met at the salon where she worked, a married father himself, and much more than a client. Because what started as small talk in a salon chair had spiraled into something much darker. Investigators uncovered thousands of messages exchanged between Karina and Huston on Snapchat.
It was an online fantasy, like going to a chat room or playing video games where you steal cars and shoot at cops. It was an online fantasy thing, and when it became a physical in-person thing, I was disgusted.
Explicit, romantic, and at times disturbing. In these messages, they fantasized about a future together. They talked about running away, having a baby through IVF, moving into a home of their own. But Ryan? He wasn't part of that future. They referred to him as an obstacle, an inconvenience. In one message, Karina wrote, "I just want it to be us. No more lies." And in another, "When he's gone, we can start."
Did you want your husband dead?
No.
Why would you say that?
Because I have a really sick sense of humor sometimes, inappropriate humor, and I was probably angry. There were times that we weren't getting along the greatest, and like people have said, especially when I drink, I have a sharp tongue sometimes and can say nasty things.
But they weren't just dreaming. They were planning. Karina had taken out a life insurance policy on Ryan, worth $500,000. She was the sole beneficiary. Investigators would later discover that Karina had been actively researching life insurance policies. The one on Ryan had recently been updated, and after his death, Karina stood to collect every cent.
The person you just referred to as a sperm donor, that's your husband,
Yes.
Ryan Cooper, who you tell this jury you loved so dearly. That's how you showed your love to Ryan Cooper, correct?
I think we all call the people that we love names at times.
I asked you, is it a yes or no question?
Yes.
Okay. And you're sending this to Huston Danker, the man you now call your online lover?
Yes.
Your husband is a sperm donor.
That's what I referred to him as, yes.
You also told him the kids are yours.
All part of the fantasy.
Is that a yes or no?
It's hard to say yes or no. I feel like that's black or white, and there's a gray area.
Ms. Cooper, did you hear my question?
I did. So, yes. If it must be yes or no, then yes, I clearly said it.
A grieving widow, a missing weapon, a dead man in a recliner, and a Snapchat lover who called himself her escape. But escape from what? Ryan Cooper wasn't violent. He wasn't dangerous. He had no enemies. He worked hard. He loved his children. He was known for being soft-spoken, steady. But just months before his death, friends say Karina made a chilling comment. She told two people on separate occasions that she could just shoot him in the face. And that's exactly what happened. 2 bullets, one in the cheek, one near the nose. No defensive wounds, no blood trail. He was likely seated, perhaps relaxed, when he was killed.
In that living room, did you search for any shell casings?
No.
Did you dispose of any shell casings?
No.
Were you deleting pictures on your phone that morning?
No.
So do you have any explanation for why your phone records would show that?
None. Unless I did. I don't know if there's a time relay on it. You know, if it was something that was, if you like delete a picture and then it sits for however long before it's permanently deleted. I don't know how all that works, if that is a possibility, but I was not deleting pictures at the time.
Then when the police get there, why didn't you tell them, Huston shot my husband?
I was so scared. I was scared. I was panicked. I instantly thought I was being set up in one of his plots that he laid out all the time through Snapchat. I panicked.
And then did you continue to lie to law enforcement for years?
I did. I was also being threatened by Huston for over a year and a half afterwards.
What was he threatening you with?
Beginning in September so it'd be September of 2021, he started sending me Snapchats that he knew where I was at. The first one, everybody's been talking about shops, how many of our friends have shops. Some friends of ours, Ethan and Abby Charlie, have a shop in town. He does air conditioning and heating work. We had been at Chris and Ashton's house, the kids and I, and we went into their shop, and the kids were all playing. We were having a few drinks, and while we were all there, I got a Snapchat from Huston that I was now screwing Ethan Charlie and Chris Wilson, and I would screw anything that moved and took care of me because we were there. That was the first of them, and then there were several after. One time he sent me a Snapchat describing what I was wearing when I went out to do cow chores that morning.
So he was continuing to watch you after June 18th.
He was watching me and reminding me about these dangerous people that he knew, and that he knew how to take care of problems, and that...
It was fast. It was direct. It was personal. And yet Karina claimed to know nothing. Said she found him that way. Said she didn't hear a thing. But for detectives, her story didn't match the evidence. Her phone showed movement, step count data, in the hours when Ryan is believed to have been shot. And Snapchat logs showed active communication with Huston that same night. Some messages were deleted. Some were unrecoverable. But one remained. Just minutes before Ryan's estimated time of death, Karina sent a single message to Huston. Go. Was it coincidence or a countdown? Back at the scene, deputies kept searching. Still no gun. Still no evidence of a break-in. Only Karina shaking, silent, sitting on top of her husband's cold body. Did she do it herself, or did she let someone else in? Could it have been Huston? Was there a plan? Was this about love or money or both? Was Ryan simply in the way? And if so, how long had this been building? No one heard gunshots that night. No dogs barked. No lights came on. The neighbors slept peacefully while just steps away, a man was executed in his own home. And the woman who called 911 waited until morning. Waited until the blood dried. Waited for what? This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about calculation. It's about secrets shared in disappearing messages. About what happens when fantasy becomes a blueprint. And about how love, when twisted, can lead to the most final kind of silence. This is the story of Ryan and Karina Cooper, and it begins with a quiet house, a missing gun, and a message sent in the dark.
How do we go from cutting his hair to Snapchat buddies?
Flirting a little bit when cutting his hair, talking about he was having a lot of problems with his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, the mother of his child at the time. He only had one. Was having some custody issues with her. He confided in me a lot about that, and I guess it kind of originated with me feeling like not a big sister, but an older person to him that has some experience in marriage and children, and just giving him advice and encouragement. And I felt kind of bad for him. He was young and had children, and other people his age didn't, and we became friendly first.
Okay. So, I mean, you raise a good point, because he's much younger. So how do we get to Snapchatting Huston what we've seen?
Sometimes negative attention is still attention, and I was being showered with attention by him, being told I was beautiful, and funny, and I would post pictures of the meal I had made that night for supper, and he'd praise it, or the garden that I planted, and he'd make a big deal out of, why can't I find a woman like that? And it became very flattering to me to
All
be.
right. So is it fair to say then Huston is maybe giving you some attention that you weren't necessarily getting from Ryan at that time?
Yes.
June 18th, 2021. Traer, Iowa. A small, quiet town just waking up. The sun is still shy behind the horizon. Nothing seems out of the ordinary, except somewhere inside a modest home on Sunnyside Street. A horror has unfolded. Inside the Cooper residence, Ryan Cooper, a 42-year-old father, husband, and forklift operator, is slumped in his recliner, not napping, not watching television. He's dead, and not from natural causes. He's been shot in the face, twice, and his wife, Karina Cooper, is sitting on top of him. This isn't a horror novel. It's not a scripted thriller. It's real. And this is only the beginning. Karina is screaming when first responders arrive. Her nightgown is stained in blood, her face contorted in grief or something else. She's not performing CPR. She's not calling for help. She's just sitting there on his body. And she tells deputies one thing: he's gone. There's no sign of forced entry, no sign of a robbery. Nothing is out of place in the house, except, of course, the man who was just shot to death in his favorite chair, while his wife claims she was sleeping in the same home. But there's more. No weapon is found at the scene, and no shell casings until deputies look closer. 2, to be exact. Ejected from a gun that's no longer there. A gun that seemingly vanished into thin air. How could a shooter come and go without leaving a trace? How could someone fire 2 rounds, so close, so personal, and leave the wife untouched? And why would Karina sit on Ryan's body? More questions than answers. The Coopers weren't strangers to the local community. Ryan was well-liked, a father to 4 children, quiet, devoted, a hard-working man who just wanted peace. Karina? A hairstylist, friendly, talkative, bright on the outside, but with something darker growing behind the smile. Detectives start digging. Karina's story is shaky. She says she went to bed, that she found Ryan like this when she woke up. She tells police she didn't hear anything. Not the gunshots, not a struggle, not an intruder. But deputies notice something else. Ryan had already started decomposing. His body was cold. Rigor mortis had set in. So if Karina only just found him, why was he dead for hours already? And again, where was the weapon? The Cooper home was searched from top to bottom. No gun, no blood trail, no signs of someone else being there. Yet 2 bullets were fired at point-blank range. And Karina? No bruises, no scratches, no blood spatter on her hands. Then something odd. Neighbors recall hearing Karina yell the night before. But no one remembers hearing gunshots. No one saw anyone leave the house. No cars driving off. Nothing suspicious. And soon, murmurs start to circulate. About marriage. About Ryan confiding in friends that things weren't going well. About Karina acting distant, cold, removed. Detectives speak to those closest to the couple. Friends, family. And they get their first break. 2 people, separate, unrelated, recall Karina saying months before the murder that she could just shoot him in the face. Yes, those exact words. Shoot him in the face. It's not enough to arrest her. Not yet. But it's enough to dig deeper. And the deeper they dig, the darker it gets. Iowa's Division of Criminal Investigation takes over the case. They begin reconstructing the couple's final months. Karina insists Ryan was depressed, that she feared for him, that she thought he may have died by suicide. But 2 bullets to the face, no weapon at the scene, and a woman who sits, crying, on top of the body? Police are skeptical. But Karina sticks to her story. She's devastated, she claims. She lost the love of her life. She's traumatized. But behind the grief, behind the trembling hands, there's something else. In every crime, there are motives waiting to be uncovered. Some hide in rage, others in fear. But sometimes it's money, or love, or the twisted fantasy of starting fresh with someone new. And that's when investigators find the messages. Texts, Snapchats, photos, thousands of them, between Karina and a man named Huston Danker. Danker wasn't just a casual friend. He was Karina's client, someone who came in for a haircut and left with much more. An affair had bloomed. Karina and Huston were exchanging messages not just about love, not just about lust, but about life insurance, in vitro fertilization, marriage, having children, together. Were these just fantasies or a roadmap? Because tucked in those messages were darker lines. Things like, remember the casings, or go, or we'd be so much happier. All of them sent just before Ryan was shot. Investigators believe it was premeditated, that Karina and Huston weren't just in love, they were conspiring. A $500,000 life insurance policy. Ryan's name on the document. Karina as the sole beneficiary. Was that the price tag on his life? And if so, who pulled the trigger? Karina would later say it wasn't her. She pointed to Huston, accused him, claimed he acted alone. But if that's true, then why didn't she call 911 the moment she found the body? Why did she sit on top of her husband for hours? Not knowing, or knowing too much. We may never know what truly happened in that house before sunrise. Only two people do. One of them is dead. The other now stands accused of making it happen. And so begins one of Iowa's most chilling cases in recent memory. From the outside, the Coopers looked like any normal couple. But behind the walls of their home was a slow-burning secret, fueled by betrayal, lust, and death. A man is dead. His wife is drenched in his blood. There's no weapon, no eyewitnesses, just silence, confusion, and a sea of suspicion. Something doesn't fit. But what if the truth was always there, just hiding in plain sight? June 18th, 2021. The crime scene has been sealed. Ryan Cooper's lifeless body is taken away. The home is now quiet, but inside the walls, the air still feels wrong. The community of Traer, Iowa, can't comprehend what they're hearing. Ryan was a hard-working father, a man who rarely made noise, who stayed out of trouble. Friends described him as gentle, patient, always trying to make things work. He loved his children, and now he was gone, violently, shot twice, in the face, at close range, while he sat reclined in his favorite chair. But who would do this? And why? And perhaps more disturbingly, how? The gun is missing. The house shows no signs of forced entry. No doors broken. No windows smashed. The family dog never barked. No alarms triggered. The shell casings? Found at the scene. But no weapon to match them. So someone came in and killed Ryan. How did they get in? And more importantly, how did they get out? The only person in the home that night? Karina Cooper. She tells authorities she went to bed early, that she didn't hear anything. She says she found Ryan like that when she woke up, that it was a shock, that she was confused, that she didn't know what to do. But police aren't convinced, because Ryan's body was already cold, stiff. He'd been dead for hours, long before the 911 call was placed. And according to deputies, Karina was not crying when they arrived. She was screaming, loudly, but not in grief, exactly, in panic, in a kind of calculated hysteria. She wasn't trying to revive Ryan. She wasn't even next to him. She was on him, sitting on top of his corpse. Why? What was she doing all that time? Sitting, waiting, thinking? When asked, she had no answers. Just more tears, more confusion.
Cooper.
But the inconsistencies start to stack.
Is your eldest child with Ryan?
Yes.
Kate loved his dad.
All three of them did, yes.
Kate Cooper loved his dad.
Yes.
He slept on the couch next to his dad, as dad slept on the recliner.
That's not why he slept on the couch, no.
Just asked you a question, yes.
So the answer is no.
That's not why, because he didn't love his dad, or slept on the couch because he didn't love his dad?
Well, which question is it? Why did he sleep on the couch, or did he love his dad? Because yes, he loved his dad.
Okay.
And yes, he slept on the couch.
Next to his father.
Yes.
On the night that Ryan Cooper's life was taken away from him, Cade was not on the couch next to his father.
He was when I went to bed.
When Ryan Cooper's life was taken away from him, Cade was not on the couch next to his father.
No, he was not.
And you know that because, as you've said before, you were up at 3 o'clock and you went to the living room where Ryan Cooper slept on his recliner, and Ryan Cooper was the only one there. Cade was not.
Correct.
So at 3 in the morning, you are aware that Cade Cooper is not on the couch.
Correct.
At 3:30, that morning at 3:32, 30 minutes after you are aware that Cade Cooper is not on the couch, you send a heart emoji to Huston Danker.
Yes.
Authorities later learned something even more unsettling. Karina had made disturbing remarks about Ryan, comments that now sound far too close to what actually happened. Two witnesses, independent of one another, tell investigators that Karina had spoken about shooting Ryan. One of them recalls. She said she could just shoot him in the face. Shoot him in the face. The exact place where Ryan was shot. Twice. These weren't offhand jokes, not sarcasm. These were statements that raised red flags months before the murder. But no one thought she'd act on them. They thought maybe it was frustration, just venting. But now, in hindsight, those words echo like a confession. Still, for months, there are no arrests, no formal charges, just whispers, rumors, doubts. The Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation takes over. They know this case is going to need more than circumstantial statements. They need hard evidence. They need motive, means, opportunity. And then something cracks open. Thousands of them. Karina Cooper had been talking to someone. Not just talking. She had been having an affair. His name, Huston Danker. A client from her salon. Married. A father himself. Their messages aren't just romantic. They're explicit, fantastical, and chilling. They talk about a life together. Having a baby through IVF. Starting fresh. They share images, flirty selfies, and emotionally charged voice notes. But buried in the stream of messages are darker fantasies. Very real ones. The messages include phrases like, "We'd be better off. Remember the casings. I love you more than anything." And one that stopped detectives in their tracks. Go. That message, sent shortly before Ryan was shot. Was it just coincidence? A benign message sent at the wrong time? Or was it a signal? Investigators start to connect the digital dots. They uncover Snapchat exchanges between Karina and Huston that indicate more than affection. They hint at collusion. They joke about wishing Ryan wasn't around, fantasize about how easy things would be if he were gone. And perhaps most damning, Karina had taken out a $500,000 life insurance policy on Ryan. She was the sole beneficiary. Is that the real motive? Love? Lust? Or greed? Prosecutors believe this wasn't a random act, that Karina and Huston had planned it, that they carefully choreographed the murder, that Karina, who had previously said she'd shoot her husband, finally decided to follow through. But again, there's a problem. No gun, no eyewitness, no confession. And so far, Karina denies pulling the trigger. She blames Huston, says he was obsessed, controlling, that she never meant for things to go that far. But digital forensic experts are painting a different picture. What kind of lover talks about life insurance in the same breath as IVF? Who jokes about removing a husband from the equation? And then suddenly, that man ends up dead. And Huston? His internet history tells its own story. Searches like, best ways to kill someone without getting caught. How to delete Snapchat messages permanently. Does life insurance pay if someone is murdered? This wasn't some innocent fling. It was a slow descent into something calculated, deadly. And when police reviewed step count data from Karina's iPhone, they made another stunning discovery. Her phone registered movement through the house during the time frame Ryan would have been killed. That means she wasn't asleep. If she didn't hear gunshots, why was she walking around? She said she found the body in the morning. But the evidence says otherwise. Investigators confront Karina. She denies everything, says she didn't kill Ryan, that she loved him, even if she was unfaithful. But love isn't what the messages show. They show someone eager to escape, eager to replace, eager to collect. She didn't call 911 right away. She waited. And when help did arrive, she wasn't near the door. She was still on top of Ryan, motionless. Why? Was she grieving? In shock? Or buying time? Even now, those are questions only Karina can answer. And when she finally took the stand, her story would shift again. But that's a tale for the next chapter. Karina Cooper was no longer just a widow. She was now a prime suspect, the grieving wife turned alleged conspirator. And the walls were closing in. In the modern world, the truth doesn't always hide in bloodstains or fingerprints. Sometimes it hides in pixels, in screenshots, in swipes and sends. And for Karina Cooper, the story told by her digital trail would soon become the loudest voice in the courtroom. The physical evidence at the scene of Ryan Cooper's murder had left investigators with more questions than answers. No forced entry, no murder weapon, just shell casings, a stiff body in a recliner, and a woman who claimed she slept through it all. But then came the messages. They were everywhere, in her phone, in her deleted apps, in the digital creases of conversations she thought were gone forever. Karina Cooper, a hairstylist and mother of four, had been having an affair with a man named Huston Danker, a client she met through her salon. It wasn't a brief fling. It was a months-long digital entanglement, and it was far from innocent. Investigators pulled over 16,000 messages between Karina and Danker. Many exchanged over Snapchat, a platform known for disappearing content. But what's deleted isn't always gone. Thanks to forensic software, authorities were able to retrieve snapshots of the relationship. Some saved intentionally, others recovered through metadata. What they found wasn't just about love or sex. It was about murder. The messages between Karina and Huston escalated quickly. They started flirty, then sexual, then sinister. They dreamed about a future together, about starting a new life, getting married, having children through IVF. But that life didn't include Ryan. They didn't just imagine life without him. They discussed it. They wrote it. They smiled through digital glass, wondering how they might make it happen. In one message, Karina wrote, "I want us, all of us. Just you, me, and a baby." And Huston responded, "We will, when he's gone." There were messages about money, about insurance, about needing to wait a bit longer. And then there were the chilling cues. Remember the casings. Go. The latter was sent just minutes before Ryan Cooper was killed. Was it code? A coincidence? A tragic moment of timing? Or a signal? Prosecutors didn't think it was random. They believed the messages were the blueprint, a digital countdown to Ryan's death. And Karina wasn't just the grieving widow. She was the architect. Detectives traced Karina's phone activity on the night of the murder. At a time when she claimed she was asleep, her phone showed movement, registered steps as she walked around the house. She wasn't motionless. She wasn't in bed. She was moving. That same night, multiple Snapchat exchanges were made. Several were deleted, but remnants remained. Forensic experts testified that Snapchat message IDs were missing in the exact window when Ryan was believed to have been shot, strongly suggesting deletion or message manipulation. And that wasn't all. A methodical cold. Investigators pulled search histories, device logs, IP records. What they found on Huston Danker's phone painted an even darker picture. In the days leading up to the murder, Danker had searched best ways to kill someone without leaving evidence.
Huston Danker would have woken up to your hands around his correct?
That's what I wrote.
That's what you wrote to him.
Correct.
You are the one who initiates that conversation.
What's that?
You're the one who sends that conversation.
Yes.
A minute later, you write to him expressing thoughts of death to the man that you claim you love called Ryan Cooper. Correct?
I wrote, here's hoping for a rogue semi today. Big accident, no survivors.
Big accident, no survivors.
That's what I wrote.
How to erase Snapchat data. How do police find deleted messages? Do life insurance policies pay for murder? He even looked up the cost of baby formula. It was all there. The motive, the method, and the aftermath. Prosecutors would later argue that Karina and Huston weren't just dreaming together. They were plotting. They believed Karina was the insider, the manipulator, the one who stood to benefit. She held the life insurance policy, $500,000, all of it payable to her in the event of Ryan's death. And Ryan had no idea. Was Karina so blinded by fantasy she was willing to kill to make it real? Because one thing was clear. Her messages showed no remorse, no fear, no hesitation. Even after Ryan was killed, her tone remained cold in texts. And even when she cried in the presence of deputies, she continued communicating with Danker. They deleted messages in the days following the murder, changed phones, avoided keywords. But in the digital world, nothing is truly hidden. And love, when paired with greed, leaves fingerprints everywhere. At trial, prosecutors laid the messages out one by one. Jurors listened. In silence, they were shown a timeline, a minute-by-minute rundown of communications between Karina and Huston on the night of Ryan's murder. 9:04 p.m., message sent. 9:07 p.m., go. 9:13 p.m., Ryan Cooper is believed to have been shot. 9:17 p.m., Karina's phone logs steps across the living room. 9:30 p.m., messages disappear from Snapchat. Did she fire the weapon? Or did Huston sneak in? Did they plan it together? Or was one merely a pawn? Karina would take the stand and tell her version. But the messages, those digital whispers, told another. And what about the missing gun? It was never found. Authorities suspected Huston disposed of it. Karina said she never saw it. Forensic experts said the shell casings matched a Ruger 10-22, a type of rifle Huston had access to. But the weapon itself vanished. So much of the case hinged on intention. Was this murder? Or fantasy gone too far? Karina claimed her messages were just talk, that she never meant them, that Huston had become obsessed and misinterpreted everything. She said she was manipulated, but the jury saw something else. They saw message after message, each a thread in a noose. They saw her movements, her lies, her silence. They saw motive, planning, digital consent, and through it all, Ryan Cooper remained silent. The victim, a father, a husband, a man who trusted the woman sleeping next to him. The digital trail didn't just lead to a motive. It rewrote the narrative. It said she wasn't sleeping. She wasn't shocked. She was prepared. And when the lights went out that night, the plan began. In a world where every tap leaves a trace, every word typed becomes a window. The question is, who was watching? And what did they really see? Because even now, one question haunts investigators. If Huston Danker was the killer, why didn't Karina stop him? Why didn't she call police immediately? Why delete the messages? Why lie about movement? Why sit on top of her husband for hours? The jury believed she knew. They believed she consented, that she helped, that she wanted it done. And the messages? They sealed her fate. The courtroom is tense, the kind of quiet that only happens when everyone is holding their breath. And then the door opened. The woman who had once been a wife, a mother, now walked to the witness stand accused of orchestrating her husband's execution. Her name was Karina Cooper, and for the first time since her arrest, she was ready to speak. July 2025. Karina Cooper takes the stand in her own defense in a courtroom in Lynn County, Iowa, dressed in a modest blouse, her hair neatly done, her voice shaky. But make no mistake, this was no ordinary witness testimony. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. For nearly 4 years, Karina had been the center of whispers, of headlines, of suspicion. Now face to face with the jury, she was no longer the alleged widow in mourning. She was the accused, charged with first-degree murder for the 2021 shooting death of her husband, Ryan Cooper. What would she say? Would she confess? Would she deflect? Or would she finally reveal a deeper truth? Karina began calmly. Yes, she had an affair. Yes, she exchanged sexual, emotional, even disturbing messages with Huston Danker. Yes, she fantasized about a new life without Ryan. But murder? No, she insisted. I did not kill my husband, and I did not want him dead. But the jury didn't need to guess her feelings. They had the messages, the ones that spoke of life insurance, of babies, of marriage, and of death. Karina claimed the messages were nothing more than fantasy. She said they were a way to escape the stress of a difficult marriage, that she never expected Huston to take them seriously. But prosecutors weren't buying it. In cross-examination, Assistant Attorney General Israel Kodaiga wasted no time. He brought up the timeline, the step data on her phone, the deleted Snapchat IDs, the coded messages, the remember the casings, the $500,000 life insurance policy, each one delivered with surgical precision. If Karina was telling the truth, why did she lie to detectives? Why did her phone show movement while she claimed to be asleep? Why delete messages that could have proven her innocence? Under pressure, Karina began to crack. She wept. Her voice broke. But even through the tears, she held her line. I was manipulated. Huston was obsessed with me. He twisted things. I didn't ask him to do this. She described Huston as controlling, intense. She said he talked about killing Ryan, but she never believed he meant it. But if she never meant it, why talk about casings? Why share intimate details about inheritance and IVF while her husband was still alive? Why, on the very night Ryan died, did she send a single word, go, just minutes before the shooting? And why, if she was innocent, didn't she tell police about any of this when Ryan was found? Instead of calling for help, she sat on his body. Instead of coming clean, she deleted messages. Instead of cooperating fully, she withheld the truth until she had no choice but to admit it under oath. Her defense attorney tried to reframe it. He told jurors Karina was vulnerable, trapped in a loveless marriage, emotionally battered, that she clung to fantasy as a coping mechanism, that Huston was the one who pulled the trigger, that Karina's words, while regrettable, were not proof of intent. But intent, prosecutors argued, was exactly what those messages showed. Go. Remember the casings. I just want him gone. Kodaiga leaned in during cross. You expected Huston to kill Ryan, didn't you? Karina shook her head. No. You knew the life insurance would pay out if Ryan died, didn't you? She nodded. Yes. And when he did die, shot in the face, you didn't tell anyone about these messages. Why? Karina looked down. I was scared. But scared of what? Of Huston? Or of being caught? The courtroom fell quiet. Jurors watched Karina closely. Not just her words, but her face. Every pause, every tear, every contradiction. And then came the moment everyone would remember. As her testimony neared its end, Karina broke down sobbing. Her voice cracked. Her shoulders shook. She begged the court to believe her. I didn't kill my husband. I swear, I didn't want him dead. But the prosecution's final question cut through the silence like a razor. If that's true, then why does the evidence say otherwise?
You write to Huston Danker that you might be pregnant this time next year, and you send 3 heart emojis. And he responds by saying, "Would love you to be pregnant next year for him." Correct?
That's what's written.
That's what you wrote.
Yes.
You yourself wrote those words, correct?
I assume so. I don't have it in front of me, and I can't remember precisely, but I'm going to assume you're correct.
Do you want me to put it up?
Not necessary.
In that moment, it wasn't just about words. It was about perception, about trust, and about the cold, hard facts that refused to go away. Karina left the witness stand shaking, her face flushed, her hands clenched. But the jury had heard enough. They had seen the digital footprint, the step data, the message deletion, the cold timing of every text, the missing gun, the inconsistencies. They had listened to her speak, and they still had questions. Did she know Huston was going to kill Ryan? Did she plan it? Did she orchestrate it? Or Did she simply let it happen? The law didn't require her to pull the trigger, only to have helped, encouraged, or enabled. And the messages? They did the rest. The defense rested. The jury would soon deliberate. And Karina Cooper's fate, whether she'd walk free or spend the rest of her life behind bars, now rested in the hands of 12 strangers. But the story didn't end there, because while Karina was being cross-examined inside the courtroom, a second trial, quiet and looming, was on the horizon. The trial of Huston Danker. What would he say? Would he admit his role? Would he protect Karina or turn on her completely? And in the end, would the whole truth finally come out? For 10 days, the courtroom had held its breath. And now, after nearly 4 years of rumors, arrests, and revelations, it was time. The evidence had been laid bare. The words, the tears, the betrayals, the death. The jury had heard it all, and now they would speak. It was July 11th, 2025. The trial of Karina Cooper had reached its final act. The small courtroom in Lynn County, Iowa, was still. Press lined the back walls. Family sat shoulder to shoulder in the pews. Prosecutors leaned forward. The defense sat stone-faced. And Karina? She clutched a tissue in one hand. Her other hand trembled in her lap. She stared at the floor as if trying to disappear into it. Because, in a few short minutes, her life was about to change forever. 12 jurors, 6 days of testimony, more than 100 pieces of evidence, thousands of messages, and now they'd made up their minds. Not in days, not in weeks, in just over 3 hours. The door opened. The jury filed in. No eye contact, no emotion, just solemn faces and steady steps. The foreperson handed the form to the bailiff. The bailiff delivered it to the judge, and the judge read it aloud. We, the jury, find the defendant, Karina Cooper, guilty of murder in the first degree. No gasps, no screams, just the kind of stillness that swallows air. Karina dropped her head. She didn't speak. She didn't move. Her sobs came seconds later, silent at first. Then rising like a tide, she could no longer hold back. This was the moment the prosecution had waited for. The moment Ryan Cooper's family had prayed for. The moment Karina, whether guilty or not, had feared every single day since the 911 call. Across the aisle, Ryan's loved ones wept. His sister clutched a photo of him from their childhood. His brother closed his eyes and whispered a prayer. They had lost Ryan in 2021. Now, they had something they never thought they'd see. Justice. Or at least something close. The verdict carried one final weight. In Iowa, a conviction for first-degree murder carries an automatic sentence. Life in prison. No parole. No second chance. No way out. Karina Cooper, hairstylist, mother, former wife, would die behind bars. But not yet. Judge Lars Anderson scheduled her sentencing for September 5th, 2025. There would be victim impact statements, closing arguments, and a final word from Karina herself, if she chose to speak. But in that moment, as she was led away in handcuffs, the silence spoke louder than any scream. Outside the courtroom, reporters rushed to deliver the headlines. Guilty. Iowa wife convicted in husband's shooting. Text to lover become nail in coffin. Inside, the mood was split. Some saw justice. Others saw tragedy. And a few still weren't sure. Because despite the guilty verdict, one massive question remained. Where was Huston Danker? Yes, Karina had been found guilty. But what about the man who shared her fantasies? The man who messaged her about marriage, babies, and casings? The man whose phone held Google searches about killing without leaving trace? Huston Danker had not yet faced trial. He had been arrested and charged, yes, but his trial was scheduled for August 2025, just weeks after Karina's verdict. And unlike Karina, he had not taken a stand. He had not answered questions. He had not explained the timing of his messages or what go really meant. Did he pull the trigger? Did he act alone? Did he act at all? Because to convict Karina, the jury had to believe she was involved, but not necessarily that she pulled the trigger. Under Iowa law, aiding and abetting in a first-degree murder, even through planning or encouragement, is enough, and Karina's digital trail was damning. But still, If Huston killed Ryan, why hadn't he confessed? And if Karina wasn't the shooter, who brought the gun into the house, who stood over Ryan as he sat in his recliner, who aimed and fired twice? Those answers might never come, because both Karina and Huston now pointed the finger at each other, and neither would admit more than they absolutely had to. As Karina sat in her jail cell, awaiting formal sentencing, her defense team promised to appeal. They claimed the jury ignored context, that the messages were misinterpreted, that the evidence was circumstantial. But to many, the jury had simply believed what their eyes and ears told them, that this wasn't just betrayal. This was premeditation. A husband is dead. A mother is gone. For children are left to pick up the pieces. And a community once quiet and trusting now stares at the cracks in its own reflection. The Karina Cooper case had become a national headline, but beneath the drama, beneath the spectacle, remained a deeper pain. Ryan Cooper was never coming back. He had died alone, in his chair, shot by someone he trusted, someone who knew him, someone who may have smiled at him hours before the gun was raised. In the end, it wasn't just a marriage that died. It was trust. And whatever innocence Karina once claimed, it vanished in the cold silence between her final message and Ryan's final breath. And yet, this story isn't over. Because as the courtroom doors closed on Karina Cooper, another courtroom began to stir. The trial of Huston Danker was set to begin within weeks. The man prosecutors believed co-conspired to kill. The man who shared dreams and perhaps blood. What will he say? Will he confess? Will he blame Karina? Will he finally reveal who fired the gun or bury the truth forever? Because until Huston Danker stands before the court, there's still a body, still a murder, still one piece of the puzzle missing. A woman has been convicted. A family is mourned. A courtroom has emptied. But still, one figure waits in the wings. A man who never testified, never faced a jury, never answered the one question that could change everything. Did Huston Danker pull the trigger? July 2025, just weeks after Karina Cooper was convicted of first-degree murder in the shooting death of her husband, Ryan, the state prepared for another trial. This time, the defendant wasn't a wife. He was a lover, a father, a man whose name had been whispered in the courtroom again and again, but who had remained just out of reach. Huston Danker.
Your mind, and you should say your mind is pretty dark and twisted, correct?
That's what I wrote in the next message, yes.
Karina said it wasn't her, that she didn't pull the trigger, that Huston acted alone. But if that's true, why hasn't he admitted it? Why hasn't he spoken? Danker remained mostly silent throughout Karina's trial. He invoked his Fifth Amendment rights. His legal team declined interviews. No public statements. No confessions. Just silence. But evidence spoke for him. In the weeks and months leading up to Ryan's death, Huston Danker's phone activity became a roadmap of intent. Searches recovered by investigators included how to kill someone with no evidence. How do police find deleted Snapchat messages? Can police recover deleted conversations? Life insurance after murder. Baby formula cost per month. IVF success rates in older couples. What kind of man plans for a child while planning a murder? It wasn't just the search history. It was the messages. Thousands of them. Many were sexual. Some were romantic. But others were dark, explicit, dangerous. One message from Huston read, "A dream of us in our own place. Just us. No more lies. No more waiting." And another, "We just need to be smart. It'll be worth it." But the most damning weren't poetic. They were specific. Karina, remember the casings. Huston, I'll do what I have to. Karina, go. Go. A single word. Sent minutes before Ryan Cooper was shot twice in the face. Coincidence? Or a cue? Investigators believed the pair had been laying digital breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs they hoped would disappear. But they didn't. When police analyzed Danker's phone, they noticed Snapchat usage spiked dramatically in the days before and after the murder. Several message threads were missing, erased entirely, or corrupted. Snapchat's self-deleting feature became a key point at trial. But digital forensic analysts were able to retrieve partial message IDs, timestamps, and metadata that indicated the exact time windows when exchanges occurred, even if the content was gone. And those exchanges, they aligned perfectly with the timeline of Ryan's murder. No GPS data placed Danker at the Cooper home. No surveillance footage showed him entering or leaving. But digital silence, right when Ryan died, spoke volumes. Investigators also recovered data suggesting that Danker reformatted his phone just days after the murder. Some files were overwritten, others intentionally wiped. And in an act prosecutors called highly suspicious, Danker deleted his Snapchat account entirely in the weeks after Ryan's death. Why delete your entire account? If you had nothing to hide? Danker's behavior after the murder also raised alarms. He never attended Ryan's funeral. He never reached out to law enforcement. He never publicly mourned. And yet he stayed in touch with Karina, texting, flirting, hiding. Some say his silence was protection, others an admission. In a twist that stunned prosecutors, investigators also found a .22 caliber Ruger rifle registered to a relative of Danker, the same caliber used in the killing. Ballistics testing could not definitively link that rifle to the murder. The weapon used to shoot Ryan Cooper was never found, but the recovered shell casings matched Ruger-style ejection patterns. Was this the same gun, or one just like it? And if it was, where is it now? A gun doesn't vanish on its own. Somebody had to take it, hide it, or destroy it. Yet despite all of this, Huston Danker was still presumed innocent. His trial is scheduled to begin August 2025, just weeks after Karina's sentencing. He will face a similar charge, first-degree murder. And if convicted, he too will face life in prison without parole. But unlike Karina, he hasn't spoken, not a word in court, not a single emotion shown in public. Just a man looking in the mirror and saying nothing. What will Huston say when the spotlight finally turns his way? Will he confess? Will he deny everything? Will he pin the crime on Karina and claim he was led by lust? Because now the stakes are higher than ever. If he confesses, he confirms the conspiracy. If he stays silent, he may walk away free. The public wants answers. So do Ryan Cooper's children. So does a jury that convicted Karina. Because the truth, it seems, is still fractured, still incomplete. In every crime, there are accomplices. But in this one, there may still be a killer. As the trial looms, one question echoes through the halls of Iowa justice. Was Karina Cooper a cold-blooded killer or a manipulated pawn in a lover's deadly game? And the only man who can answer that is Huston Danker. Friday, July 11th, 2025. In a Lynn County courtroom, the echoes of betrayal and loss reverberated one last time. 10 days of testimony, dozens of witnesses, thousands of messages. And in the end, it took the jury just 3 hours to decide the fate of Karina Cooper. The courtroom was still, every seat filled. Reporters pressed their pens. Family members gripped folded tissues. Deputies stood stiffly by the doors, eyes scanning the room. Karina Cooper sat at the defense table. Her eyes were down, her hands clenched in her lap. Her attorneys murmured to her softly, but she barely responded. When the jury returned, all eyes locked on the foreperson. Would they believe her story, or had the evidence already spoken louder than words? Would the jury find the defendant, Karina Cooper, guilty of murder in the first degree? No cries erupted, no yelling, only silence. And then Karina's body shook. She wept, not violently, not loudly, but with the soft, restrained sobs of someone who understood. This was the end. Under Iowa law, a conviction for first-degree murder carries only one sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. The moment the verdict was read, Karina Cooper's fate was sealed. She would die behind bars. The judge's ruling was immediate. There would be no separate sentencing hearing, no weeks of delay, no suspense. The law was clear. The sentence automatic. Karina Cooper, wife, mother of 4, former hairstylist, was now a convicted murderer. She would never walk free again. But even with the sentence imposed, the pain was far from over. Because in that courtroom, grief had never been just legal. It had been personal, raw, a wound still open. Across the aisle, Ryan Cooper's family embraced. Tears fell. Relief and sorrow wrestled in the faces of his siblings. A mix of justice and heartbreak. Because while the verdict brought closure, it didn't bring Ryan back. It didn't erase the images. It didn't mute the memories. It didn't explain why. He died sitting in his recliner. A quiet man, a father, a husband, shot twice in the face while his children slept, and his wife, who was supposed to protect him, had become the orchestrator of his end. The trial had revealed what family suspected but never wanted to believe: a secret affair, disturbing Snapchat messages, whispers of IVF, life insurance, and escape, a digital trail so damning it needed no interpretation. Karina had taken the stand. She had cried. She had denied involvement. She had blamed her lover, Huston Danker. But the jury didn't believe her. The message timeline, the step count data, the deleted communications.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Karina Cooper, guilty of the offense of murder in the first degree, dated this 11th day of July, 2025.
Karina said it wasn't her, that she didn't pull the trigger, that Huston acted alone. But if that's true, why hasn't he admitted it? Why hasn't he spoken? Danker remained mostly silent throughout Karina's trial. He invoked his Fifth Amendment rights. His legal team declined interviews. No public statements. No confessions. Just silence. But evidence spoke for him. In the weeks and months leading up to Ryan's death, Huston Danker's phone activity became a roadmap of intent. Searches recovered by investigators included: how to kill someone with no evidence. How do police find deleted Snapchat messages? Can police recover deleted conversations? Life insurance after murder. Baby formula cost per month. IVF success rates in older couples. What kind of man plans for a child while planning a murder? It wasn't just the search history. It was the messages. Thousands of them. Many were sexual. Some were romantic. But others were dark, explicit, dangerous. One message from Huston read: I dream of us in our own place. Just us. No more lies. No more waiting. And another: we just need to be smart. It'll be worth it. But the most damning weren't poetic. They were specific. Karina, remember the casings. Huston, I'll do what I have to. Karina, go, go. A single word, sent minutes before Ryan Cooper was shot twice in the face. Coincidence? Or a cue? Investigators believed the pair had been laying digital breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs they hoped would disappear. But they didn't. When police analyzed Danker's phone, they noticed Snapchat usage spiked dramatically in the days before and after the murder. Several message threads were missing, erased entirely, or corrupted. Snapchat's self-deleting feature became a key point at trial. But digital forensic analysts were able to retrieve partial message IDs, timestamps, and metadata that indicated the exact time windows when exchanges occurred, even if the content was gone. And those exchanges? They aligned perfectly with the timeline of Ryan's murder. No GPS data placed Danker at the Cooper home. No surveillance footage showed him entering or leaving. But digital silence, right when Ryan died, spoke volumes. Investigators also recovered data suggesting that Danker reformatted his phone just days after the murder. Some files were overwritten, others intentionally wiped. And in an act prosecutors called highly suspicious, Danker deleted his Snapchat account entirely in the weeks after Ryan's death. Why delete your entire account if you had nothing to hide? Danker's behavior after the murder also raised alarms. He never attended Ryan's funeral. He never reached out to law enforcement. He never publicly mourned. And yet he stayed in touch with Karina, texting, flirting, hiding. Some say his silence was protection, others an admission. In a twist that stunned prosecutors, investigators also found a .22 caliber Ruger rifle registered to a relative of Danker, the same caliber used in the killing. Ballistics testing could not definitively link that rifle to the murder. The weapon used to shoot Ryan Cooper was never found, but the recovered shell casings matched Ruger-style ejection patterns. Was this the same gun, or one just like it? And if it was, where is it now? A gun doesn't vanish on its own. Somebody had to take it, hide it, or destroy it. Yet despite all of this, Huston Danker was still presumed innocent. His trial is scheduled to begin August 2025, just weeks after Karina's sentencing. He will face a similar charge, first-degree murder. And if convicted, He too will face life in prison without parole. But unlike Karina, he hasn't spoken. Not a word in court. Not a single emotion shown in public. Just a man looking in the mirror and saying nothing. What will Huston say when the spotlight finally turns his way? Will he confess? Will he deny everything? Will he pin the crime on Karina and claim he was led by lust? Because now the stakes are higher than ever. If he confesses, he confirms the conspiracy. If he stays silent, he may walk away free. The public wants answers. So do Ryan Cooper's children. So does a jury that convicted Karina. Because the truth, it seems, is still fractured, still incomplete. In every crime, there are accomplices. But in this one, there may still be a killer. As the trial looms, one question echoes through the halls of Iowa justice. Was Karina Cooper a cold-blooded killer or a manipulated pawn in a lover's deadly game? And the only man who can answer that is Huston Danker. Friday, July 11th, 2025. In a Lynn County courtroom, the echoes of betrayal and loss reverberated one last time. 10 days of testimony, dozens of witnesses, thousands of messages. And in the end, it took the jury just 3 hours to decide the fate of Karina Cooper. The courtroom was still, every seat filled. Reporters pressed their pens. Family members gripped folded tissues. Deputies stood stiffly by the doors, eyes scanning the room. Karina Cooper sat at the defense table. Her eyes were down, her hands clenched in her lap. Her attorneys murmured to her softly, but she barely responded. When the jury returned, all eyes locked on the foreperson. Would they believe her story, or had the evidence already spoken louder than words? Would the jury find the defendant, Karina Cooper, guilty of murder in the first degree? No cries erupted, no yelling, only silence. And then Karina's body shook. She wept, not violently, not loudly, but with the soft, restrained sobs of someone who understood. This was the end. Under Iowa law, a conviction for first-degree murder carries only one sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. The moment the verdict was read, Karina Cooper's fate was sealed. She would die behind bars. The judge's ruling was immediate. There would be no separate sentencing hearing, no weeks of delay, no suspense. The law was clear. The sentence automatic. Karina Cooper, wife, mother of 4, former hairstylist, was now a convicted murderer. She would never walk free again. But even with the sentence imposed, the pain was far from over. Because in that courtroom, grief had never been just legal. It had been personal, raw, a wound still open. Across the aisle, Ryan Cooper's family embraced. Tears fell. Relief and sorrow wrestled in the faces of his siblings. A mix of justice and heartbreak. Because while the verdict brought closure, it didn't bring Ryan back. It didn't erase the images. It didn't mute the memories. It didn't explain why. He died sitting in his recliner. A quiet man, a father, a husband, shot twice in the face while his children slept, and his wife, who was supposed to protect him, had become the orchestrator of his end. The trial had revealed what family suspected but never wanted to believe: a secret affair, disturbing Snapchat messages, whispers of IVF, life insurance, and escape, a digital trail so damning it needed no interpretation. Karina had taken the stand. She had cried. She had denied involvement. She had blamed her lover, Huston Danker. But the jury didn't believe her. The message timeline, the step count data, the deleted communications, they told another story, a story not of coincidence, but of conspiracy. With the sentence imposed, Karina was handcuffed and let out of the courtroom. No last words, no final plea, only the metallic click of chains and the quiet exhale of a community that had waited for years for justice. Outside, the headlines were swift. Iowa woman convicted. Life without parole. Digital evidence seals fate. But inside the courtroom, justice came with a complicated aftertaste. Some called it fair. Others called it overdue. A few still questioned whether the full truth had been told. Because Karina didn't act alone. There was another name on every page of evidence. Another face behind the messages. Another voice in the late-night exchanges. Another mind in the plan. Huston Danker. He had not testified. He had not been sentenced. He had not answered a single question in front of a jury, but he had been charged with the same crime. And in a matter of weeks, he would stand where Karina once stood, on trial for first-degree murder. What would he say? Would he confess? Would he break the silence Karina never could? Or would he turn it all back on her? Because now the story had split in two. Karina was convicted, but Huston's role still shrouded in silence. In the eyes of court, Karina conspired, aided, encouraged. But in the eyes of the family, the hands that pulled the trigger still hadn't been held accountable. Ryan Cooper's sister told a reporter outside the courthouse, "We're relieved, but this isn't finished. There's more to this story, and we want the truth, all of it." The upcoming trial of Huston Danker was more than a formality. It was a question mark, because if he confessed, it would validate everything prosecutors had claimed. If he denied it, it would test the credibility of Karina's conviction. If he turned on her, it might open old wounds and shift public perception once again. Ryan Cooper died on June 18, 2021, shot twice in the face in his own home, in his own recliner, by someone he knew, someone he trusted. The man who worked hard, who raised 4 children, who lived quietly, died violently. And for nearly 3 years, there were no arrests, only grief, doubt, whispers. Then came the messages, thousands of them, shared between Ryan's wife, Karina Cooper, and her lover, Huston Danker. Digital breadcrumbs that told a story not of accident, but of intention. Messages about IVF, about marriage, about insurance, about Ryan's absence. In July 2025, Karina was convicted of first-degree murder. The jury took just 3 hours. She was sentenced the same day. Life without parole. No confession, no apology, just silence and denial. But justice, for some, still feels unfinished. Because Huston Danker, the man who searched for how to kill without being caught, who deleted Snapchat messages, who exchanged intimate plans with Karina, has not yet been tried. As of this recording, he faces the same charge, first-degree murder. His trial, if it proceeds, will ask the same questions. Who pulled the trigger? Who planned it? And who, in the end, is truly responsible? Karina Cooper is behind bars. But is the story complete?